Hi, my name's Adam Gent, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Google Index Health Checkup workbook I've put together and use to help identify if a website has any index bloat issues. This workbook is incredibly simple and only needs Ahrefs data to work. Let's go through it and tell you how it works. So the first thing you need to understand is this tool is not a deep dive diagnostic. It is meant to be a direction for you to identify if you need to do a deeper dive into a website and if it has Google indexing issues. There are signals that you can identify once you know and monitor indexing data to tell you if there is a problem. And this sheet I've put together so that you can do that on your websites and for any clients that you work with. This is for any SEO professionals or consultants, agencies that want to identify problems for their clients. Anyone who works in-house, if you have a suspicion that there are indexing issues or index bloat issues, this sheet can help you. And any kind of developer, product manager, or business owner can use this spreadsheet as well to identify if there are any problems on their website in terms of index bloat. I've talked about index bloat, but what does that mean? Well, if you have a large number of pages on a website, we're talking hundreds of thousands of pages, maybe tens of thousands of pages, and a lot of them are indexed. So you go into Google Search Console and they are in the page indexing report and they have the green icon for indexed, but lots of them don't get any clicks, engagement, links, and they're only really there to drive SEO traffic, or they're not really adding any value to the business, and they are indexed. They are actively kind of devaluing your site quality score in Google search, which is needed to rank your website in traditional SEO results and in Google's AI features as well. And actually working with clients, I've actually helped reverse this Google kind of index bloat and help reverse SEO performance from going kind of down to getting it kind of back to where it was just by dealing with index bloat. You can see the example on the screen is a testimonial from Andy Chadwick, Snipper Digital, who I worked with on a client to make sure that they actually dealt with the index bloat issues on their site. And there are many other examples as well. If you go to Indexing OS, you'll be able to see of me dealing with index bloat issues. Okay, so how to use the tool. So first we go to the instructions, and here kind of a description of what needs to be done. But basically, it's very simple. What we need to do is we need to go to Ahrefs. We need to put the domain that we want to track into Ahrefs, Google Search Console, Ahrefs. This is really important. What you want to do is set it to path. The reason why I want to set it to path is we don't want any other subdomains being included in this data because the site quality score is kind of attributed to a subdomain level, in this case the www of a website. So we're not interested in, documentation or developer or help subdomains. We're only interested in the main part of the website. Okay, even for non-www, we want to do this. We want to set it to path. So we're only dealing with the right areas of the site that we want to action. Okay. When we've done that, we go to general. We tick average organic traffic, we tick organic pages, and we tick crawl pages. We set it for 2 years. We set it to monthly, and that's it. This gives us a good overview of what is going on a website in terms of what pages are being crawled, how many pages are appearing in search in the top 100 results for the particular keywords, and the kind of average organic traffic projection of what is going on in terms of how well a website is performing in Google search as well. Once we've done that, we export. So we untick any notes, we make sure this is set to in top 100, and we hit export. That's it. Then you go to Historic Performance tab, you copy and paste the spreadsheet, and you paste it in here, in the yellow cells. That's it. That's all you need to do. Then you go to the Index Coverage Analysis tab. These 3 cells are populated with the data you just pasted in, okay? The scorecard in the kind of organic search traffic kind of graph, that is also populated with the data that you input, okay? That's why we do it. So we don't have to do anything else. Then we just input the domain rating, which can be found quite easily in Ahrefs for that particular domain. Then we find the do follow links from domains with traffic. Very easy to get. Best by links, do follow, add filter, domain traffic from referring domains, apply. We just want to make sure we're getting at least the domain has one bit of traffic. You know, most websites, 97% of the internet doesn't get any traffic. So we want to make sure that the domains that we're counting here are actually domains that even in Ahrefs get traffic, because those kinds of links from those pages are probably more trusted than links that don't get traffic, just in terms of how the algorithm works. That's what we're looking for. Okay, we hit apply. Cool, we've got 721 pages, 720 pages last time I checked. Woo, one more link. Okay, next we need to get the total pages in an XML sitemap. Very simple, okay? So first what you want to do is you probably want to go to the robots.txt of the domain you want to look for. You probably want to scroll to the bottom and you'll probably find XML sitemaps here using the sitemap command. You're looking for the sitemap of sitemaps called a sitemap index. It's usually /sitemap.xml, but there are variations. Some websites do make variations of that. So that's what you're looking for, okay? Now there are 2 ways that you can do this. You can either use Google Search Console, and you can go into the report Google Search Console, and it will tell you how many pages are in those sitemaps. Or you can go to Screaming Frog, which is here. So trouble trying to make sure it works. All right, so with Screaming Frog, all you need to do is you need to make sure that it's set to list mode. Okay? So you go to the mode at the top, you click list mode, and then you go to upload and you go to download sitemaps. You copy and paste the sitemap in there. There we go. Right, so because I've submitted the sitemap index, what Screaming Frog will do is they will take that sitemap index, download all the pages, all the sitemaps from that sitemap, then download all the pages from those sitemaps. And what you have is a nice big number, 2,477 pages. I could also copy and paste all of the pages. What am I doing? I'm doing the wrong thing. I can copy and paste all of these as well if I wanted to, if they're relevant to that particular site. Download all the pages. Again, don't spend too much time on this. You're just trying to get a rough figure of how many actual pages are in the sitemap, because that tells us exactly what's important to the site, because that's what sitemaps are. They're pages that we want to be crawled and indexed. So it's important we get those, okay? And then we fill that number in there, okay? That's it. Your scorecard will populate for the domain. You don't have to do anything else. You just put in those numbers and off we go. What happens then is we calculate a few things. So we calculate index coverage, we calculate sitemap coverage, and backlinks with traffic coverage. Very simple in terms of how these are calculated. So index coverage rate is calculated based on number of crawl pages that are found via Ahrefs and the number of pages that are getting traffic. That's it. Because if a page is getting traffic, it is eligible to appear in search. That's literally kind of what index means. It means that Google can select it for being index selection, and then it can appear in search results. So if a page is getting traffic, it is indexed, and therefore we can use it to calculate the index coverage rate for this particular website. Now, what we're looking for is a high figure. We're looking for a high index coverage rate. The lower the index coverage rate, the more that we have pages that are crawled versus pages that are appearing in search results. And we don't want that. We want a good number, about, over 50, 60, 70% of pages to be actually kind of appearing in search, right, versus crawled. Now, most sites I've seen that healthy are 80%, but, there isn't really that much issue between 50 and 70%. But it could be an indication that you might want to look into it, because it might be that, just like this website, the number of crawl pages is spiking. Not sure what happened in November 2024, but something happened to cause them to get, huge amounts of crawl pages, right? So we need to kind of investigate that. If we're seeing that we're over 50%, but we're not hitting that 70, 80% that we should really be hitting. And if you're below 50%, if you're hitting, 30%, 40%, anything below 30%, I would say needs to be taken seriously and dug into and seeing what is going on and needs further analysis, if I'm being honest. Right, so what are the metrics? What are they being used for? Well, sitemap coverage just tells us, okay, so we have 2,477 pages in the sitemap, but we're, Ahrefs is crawling 5,178. So there's some difference between these two figures. It could be that the parameter or facets on the e-commerce site are causing more pages to be crawled, which means we don't have to worry too much about that. It could be that actually the pages in sitemaps don't reflect actually what's being indexed by Google or being found by, Ahrefs and Google. You have to take this data with a pinch of salt, unfortunately, because it's not accurate. It's a direction, Ahrefs data. It's an estimate. It's not accurate to what Google is seeing as well. But it gives us a good indication, a good direction. So again, I'm looking at this thinking, well, either the sitemap's not reflecting what's on the site, or there's some kind of facet and filter going on. Now, what I've built into the tool, if you want to use this, is you can just tick this box in the M15. I can tick this box. What that does is, and you can see when I do, let me do that again. So you can see here, tick. I'm using the total number of pages in Excel sitemaps instead of the crawled pages as a baseline of the pages I care about versus, the ratio of pages I care about versus what is actually appearing in search. You can see it's jumped to 52.04%. That's healthier. Still needs looking at, but healthier. And you can see here in the site sections, which we'll go over in a second, also change. All right. Now, just be careful using this, because just because crawl pages can be lots of different things doesn't necessarily mean the sitemap is accurate. If you know the sitemap's healthy, as in it doesn't have a lot of 404 duplicate problem pages, and you know that the sitemap has got the right pages in it, or that the site's just so full of parameters and you manage that well, then yeah, the total number of pages in a sitemap is a better, more accurate way of analyzing this, using this data and analyzing this sheet. But don't automatically tick it simply because you don't agree with the crawl pages. So just be self-reflective. But for now, I'm just going to untick it because I don't know. I don't know about this website, and there's a huge number of crawl pages being found. And finally, we have the backlink coverage score. Now, the backlink coverage score is interesting, right? Remember, these are referring pages from domains that get traffic with do follow links, okay? These are some of the best links that you can get effectively. Yes, sometimes the DR is low. Yes, sometimes the website isn't as relevant. But if a domain is getting traffic and it is sending you a do follow link, in the nearest seed PageRank model, that's That's a lot better than lots of other websites on the web, okay? But again, we're taking into account index coverage rate we're taking into account the crawl pages versus the number of pages with backlinks. Now, obviously, it's never going to be 50, 60, 70%, but you're probably wanting more than 13% of the pages to be getting links. Again, it's just a score and indication, but I would be looking at this thinking, right, well, surely some other parts of the site should be getting more backlinks, right? Yeah, it's a score, it's there, it's relevant to the analysis we're about to do with site sections, but I just want to include it because it's important, especially in SEO. So yeah, that's why that score's there and that's why it's included. Cool, so if you scroll down, as I've already talked about, you can see the performance history here using the Ahrefs data. There's definitely something going on with crawl pages. I'm not sure what, but the gap between crawl pages and pages appearing in search, i.e. are indexed, is big. So what is going on there, right? And we can see that the amount of traffic has definitely jumped, but actually, if you look at, from September 2025, something's definitely happening to cause not only the number of organic pages to drop, but also organic search to drop. And you can see the number of crawl pages is growing. Okay? And I just randomly picked this site. I didn't realize it would be so good in terms of showing off this workbook. But again, it's worth understanding and digging into. Okay? Index coverage graph just shows you crawl pages, index pages with traffic, i.e. index pages, and the index coverage rate. Okay, same with sitemap coverage, same with backlink coverage, just to give you some visual understanding of what is going on. Yeah, something definitely going on here. So what do we do about it? Well, this is the real juice of the spreadsheet. All right, this is where things happen. What I do then is I take the different site sections of this website. I'm going to jump here, right? And I can start to go through. In the navigation, I can start to see where the big areas of the site are, right? In particular, for this website, send flowers is a huge part of what makes the URL structure. It's just a huge part of the URL structure. It's just everywhere, right? So quite a lot of pages are in send flowers. There are quite a lot in send. And huge number of pages in the blog, right? And there's also an international site. So again, I go into Ahrefs. I just take some of these points. I'm going to take send flowers. I'm going to go back to overview. I'm going to go back to general. I'm going to put this in. Make sure this is on path. I look at these numbers and go, okay, so I just look at them again. And I simply just fill in this information here. Okay? Again, I do the same thing with do follow links. Do the same thing for every single site section. If you have sitemap total pages available, by all means, go nuts. Put them in. It's optional. You don't have to do this. If you ever want to use the kind of using sitemap pages as a baseline rather than crawl pages, then it's more important to do it. But you can skip that if you really don't have the data, because not all websites break down their pages, their sitemaps by page types or by templates. So, you can ignore it if needed. Okay, so once we've got all that, then we go back here. All right. This is where things get useful and interesting. So, quite a lot of the time, when you see things on X, on LinkedIn, you will see quite a lot of people talking about AI content or start talking about all sorts of things to do with content slop, right? Now, something's happening here. A lot of crawl pages, and there's a decline in organic pages, and there's a decline in organic traffic, all right? Now, you would think that is to do with content slop, right? You probably think that, it's the blog. They probably had lots of pages on the blog and, their AI content, etc., right? I've no idea about this in particular site, but that is usually the go-to for lots of SEO professionals. But that's not what I'm looking at in the data. What I'm seeing in the data is there's lots of send flower pages, right? Lots of product and category pages sit in the send flowers. It has lots of crawled pages, okay? But it doesn't have a lot of send flowers index coverage, right? A lot of pages are being crawled, but not a lot are appearing in search versus the ratio, right? Send as well does the same thing. And interestingly, the international site, less are being crawled, but then less are appearing in search, okay? Same with this category here. I think quite a lot of like sales and specialist offers sit here, right? But the blog's doing great. 75% of the crawl pages are appearing in search. No problem with the blog. The problem seems to be with the categories and the product pages, all right? That's where you need to focus your time if you were working on this site. Now, again, if we scroll down, sometimes people's reaction is, oh, I need to cull and cut, areas of the site. Well, I'm like, well, hold on, let's look at the backlink coverage. Because again, same thing here, right? Lots of the blog pages are getting backlinks. Even quite a lot of like 12, maybe 13% of these specialist categories are getting links. Not much is going to the international site, which is interesting. Less than 10% are going to send flowers and send as well, right? So to me, what I'm understanding of this is, if we're just to summarize, a lot of the product and category pages are where Ahrefs is spending a lot of its time. If Ahrefs is spending its time there, probably Google is as well. But not a lot of pages are appearing in search. Now again, Ahrefs is an estimate. It could be underselling exactly how much is getting traffic and impressions, but it's a direction, right? It's a flag to be like, maybe we need to look at this more in depth and take our own data and understand if this is an actual problem. Because not a lot of pages are getting traffic and not a lot of pages are getting backlinks. Yes, the blog is, right? And yes, the specialist area is as well. But something else is going on here, right? And it warrants investigation. And that's basically what the sheet does, right? Now, if we were to go to, where are the instructions here? If we were to go to some other examples, you would see the same thing, right? This is a very well-known B2B kind of software company, which I've removed mentions of because I don't like pointing fingers. Although I just point fingers at that website anyway. But you can see huge volume of crawl pages, decline in traffic, decline in organic pages as well. Now, lots of people again would blame the blog, okay? But that's not what I'm seeing. What I am seeing is there's these template pages. There's this international paid blog sections. Yes, the blog isn't as good as it should be, but it's actually, weirdly, one of the biggest indexed eligible to appear in search results site sections on this website. So I wouldn't be necessarily blaming the blog. And then if we look at the backlink coverage, I mean, it gets over 50% of the backlinks. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the problem. I think the problem with this B2B company is templates and international blogs. That's where I think index bloat has happened on this website, and that's what I would be investigating and dealing with in terms of, do these index pages actually add value to the site? And then the other example is this B2C, well-known company, right? Very, hot company right now. Everybody's using them, right? Well, what's interesting is their average organic traffic tanked, right? And the number of crawl pages is skyrocketing. And again, if we scroll down, there are particular areas of the site that are getting crawled a lot. There are lots of pages. crawl pages, right? The largest areas of the site. But again, 30%, no, like, down here, news at 2%. But if we go and look, interesting. So it's actually getting a lot of backlink coverage to these areas. In fact, quite a lot of the site is getting lots of backlinks. But then there's something else going on, because if pages, remember, these are do follow links from domains that are getting traffic, then why on earth is this at 30%? Is this at 2%? Right? And again, news isn't necessarily meant to appear in search, but it warrants investigation. If this is meant to appear in search as well, then something is going on. And then again, as usual, international site sections, 30%, 30%. Something else is happening. It warrants investigation, basically. Yeah, and that's it, really. That's the spreadsheet, okay? It just is designed to give you direction, to give you more information and help you understand, is there a problem, okay? So what do we do when we have a problem? Well, if your verdict is index bloat is detected, then you need to do a deep dive using Google Search Console data, doing some kind of content audit that pulls in lots of analytics and indexing data and layering that over to understand if this is actually worth even more investigation and actually dealing with these pages. Because if there are index pages that add no value, that don't really get any engagement, nobody visits it, not even SEO, but nobody visits it or bothers with it, then it's dragging down your website, okay? If it's index bloat detected on this sheet or index health okay, I would be looking at doing some kind of analysis, just some kind of content audit on the site sections that have the most crawl pages. That's what I would be doing, and I'd be using data to figure it out, because it is having an impact on people's visibility. Dealing with it does actually help improve both traditional and AI visibility, right? 100%. So that's what I would be doing. And that's it. If you have any questions, you can, fire them across on LinkedIn, on X. I'm happy to answer them. If you'd like, more help with dealing with index bloat, then you can chat to me and book a discovery call on Indexing OS. Or if you want, you can request a free trial to get, more indexing data at scale, and actually pulling in an indexing data and layering that over your analytics data is what's going to help you kind of get ahead in terms of what is actually kind of contributing or not contributing towards the site quality score of your website. Thank you for listening. Have a good week. Bye.